If you are over 60 and you have been taking Losartan with amlodipine, there is one question you cannot afford to ignore anymore. What are these pills really doing to your body over the next 5 years? Because the biggest danger is not always the tablet you swallow each morning. Sometimes the bigger danger is not knowing whether that medication has been steadily protecting your heart, your brain, and your kidneys, or quietly creating problems that have become so gradual you stopped noticing them. And that matters more than most people realize. Because some adults over 60 take this combination for years and end up with steadier blood pressure, less strain on the heart, lower stroke risk, and better long-term protection than they would have had without treatment. But others begin to develop swollen ankles, dizzy spells, subtle lab changes, fatigue, or blood pressure that has drifted lower than their body can comfortably handle. And the difference between those two outcomes is not luck. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with me all the way through, because this is the kind of health information that can help you ask better questions before a small issue becomes a major one. I'm Dr. Clara Hoffman, and one of the most common mistakes I see is this. People assume that being on blood pressure medicine for years automatically means the medicine must be weakening the body. That is usually not the real story. What happens after 5 years on Losartan and amlodipine depends on 3 things. First, what your blood pressure was doing before treatment ever began. Second, how your body responds to each medication individually and together. And third, whether anyone has been watching for the small changes that build quietly over time. That last part is where people get blindsided, because the body rarely begins with a dramatic warning. Most of the time it starts with a whisper, a little ankle heaviness, a little lightheadedness when standing, a little fatigue after a hot day, a blood test that is only slightly off. And when those whispers are ignored long enough, they stop whispering. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel was 68 when he started Losartan with amlodipine. His blood pressure had been difficult for years. One medication brought it down a little, but not enough. 2 medications finally got him under control. At first, he felt relieved. His home readings looked better. He stopped getting those pounding headaches. He slept with less pressure in his head. He felt like he had finally done something right for his future. But 5 years later, he sat across from me and asked a question I hear all the time. Dr. Clara Hoffman, are these medicines still helping me, or have they become a problem I just haven't recognized yet? That is exactly the question we are going to answer today. To understand what happens over 5 years, first need to understand why these 2 medicines are paired together so often in the first place. Losartan and amlodipine do not do the same job. Losartan blocks the effects of angiotensin II, one of the body's strongest signals for tightening blood vessels and holding on to salt and water. Amlodipine works from a different angle. It relaxes the muscles in the walls of the arteries, which helps those blood vessels stay more open. One drug helps block the tightening signal. The other helps the artery wall relax. That combination is important because many adults over 60 are not dealing with a tiny blood pressure problem. They are dealing with years, sometimes decades, of silent pressure damage. High blood pressure does not just create ugly numbers on a screen. It thickens the heart muscle. It strains the kidneys. It injures delicate blood vessels in the brain. It puts stress on the eyes. It stiffens arteries until the whole system becomes less forgiving. So when Losartan and amlodipine are working well together, the benefit is not just that your blood pressure cuff shows a prettier number. The deeper benefit is that your organs may be living under less force, less pressure, and less damage every minute of every day. That kind of protection is real. But here's where people get confused. In the first days or weeks on this combination, your body often notices the medication before it appreciates the benefit. That is why some people feel dizzy at first. Some feel flushed, some notice headaches, some feel a pounding heartbeat, some get tired. And amlodipine, in particular, can cause swelling in the ankles or lower legs. Losartan can also contribute to dizziness, especially when standing up too fast. And in some people, it can affect lab values long before it causes symptoms you can actually feel. So early on, the experience can be misleading. You may think, this medicine is making me worse. But sometimes what is actually happening is that your circulation is adjusting to a lower pressure after years of living under strain. The body often prefers familiarity, even when that familiarity is unhealthy. Then something interesting happens. If the combination is a good fit, the body usually adapts. Those early side effects may ease. The blood pressure becomes steadier. Morning spikes may calm down. The heart is no longer pushing against the same degree of resistance. And the tiny blood vessels in the brain and kidneys may stop taking the same daily pounding they were taking before. That is the quiet power of good blood pressure control. It is not dramatic. No one wakes up and says, "My kidneys feel protected today." No one says, "My future stroke risk feels lower this morning." That is exactly why so many people underestimate the benefit. The best effects are often the ones you cannot feel. So what can happen over the next 5 years if you are over 60 and taking Losartan with amlodipine? In the best case scenario, your body may be living under significantly less pressure-related stress than it would have without treatment. Your heart may be pumping against less resistance. Your brain may face lower vascular stress. Your kidneys may be under less strain. And if you have certain kidney conditions, especially in the right patient with diabetes and high blood pressure, Losartan may offer an added layer of kidney protection. That is the good side of the story. But there is another side. Because 5 years is long enough for side effects that seemed small in month 1 to become meaningful in year 3, year 4, and year 5. Let's start with the issue many people notice first, but often misunderstand: swelling. Amlodipine is famous for this. And when people hear the word swelling, they often panic. They immediately think heart failure, kidney failure, or something catastrophic. Now, sometimes swelling absolutely does need urgent attention, especially if it is new, one-sided painful, or comes with shortness of breath. But the classic swelling caused by amlodipine often behaves differently. It is usually in both ankles. It often gets worse later in the day. It may improve overnight. It can feel more heavy and annoying than dangerous. But after 5 years, annoying still matters. Because heavy legs change movement. Movement changes balance. Balance changes confidence. Confidence changes independence. That is how a mild side effect quietly starts shaping a person's life. They walk less. They go out less. They avoid long trips. They stop standing in the kitchen as long. They begin to think, "I'm just getting older." When in reality, part of the story may be medication-related. And here is what makes this more complicated. In some people, combining amlodipine with a drug like Losartan can actually reduce the chance or severity of swelling compared with amlodipine alone. But reduce does not mean eliminate. Some people still swell. Some swell more in hot weather. Some notice it more after salty meals or long car rides. Some don't connect it to the medication for years because the blood pressure numbers looked so good that no one wanted to challenge the prescription. Now let's talk about the part many people cannot feel at all: blood work. Losartan can be very helpful, but it also works through a system that affects kidney function and potassium balance. That means over time, especially in older adults, kidney function and potassium levels may need regular review. And this is where long-term use becomes tricky, because the labs may drift before the body says anything obvious. You may feel fine while the numbers are changing, or you may feel weak, off balance, crampy, or oddly tired and never realize that the medication, the kidneys, dehydration, salt substitutes, supplements, or other medicines are all interacting behind the scenes. This is why 5 years on a medicine should never mean 5 years on autopilot. The body changes, kidney function changes, other prescriptions get added, heat affects circulation, stomach illness causes fluid loss. And suddenly, the medication plan that once fit beautifully may no longer fit the body you have today. That brings us to dizziness. This is one of the biggest hidden dangers in adults over 60. Maybe you lost weight, maybe you improved your diet, maybe you started walking every day. Maybe you cut back on salt. Maybe another condition improved. Those are all good changes. But if your body now needs less blood pressure medication and the dose never changes, the exact same combination that once protected, you can start feeling too strong. Now you stand up and the room tilts. Now you bend down to pick something up and feel strange when you rise. Now a hot shower leaves you shaky. Now a day of poor hydration turns into an almost fall in the kitchen. That is how people get hurt, not always with a dramatic collapse, often with tiny moments of instability that repeat until one of them goes badly. And many people miss the connection because they have been on the medicine forever. They assume anything new must be age, not medication. That assumption is dangerous. Long-term use does not mean the drug is no longer capable of causing side effects. It often means you have stopped thinking of those side effects as side effects. There is another myth I want to break right now. A lot of people believe that if they take blood pressure medicine for years, the medicine must be building up inside them and slowly poisoning the body. That is usually not what is happening. These medicines are not typically sitting there year after year, stacking up like boxes in a storage room. What is really happening is more practical. Either the medication is controlling blood pressure and protecting the body, or it is causing side effects that need attention. Or your body has changed enough that the old plan no longer matches your current reality. Those are the real long-term possibilities. The danger is not simply taking it for years. The danger is taking it for years without review, without monitoring, without honest symptom reporting, without asking whether year 5 still deserves the same plan as year 1. Now let's talk about quality of life, because this part gets dismissed far too often. Once someone has taken the same pills for years, those pills become routine. And routine can be comforting. People do not want to rock the boat. They do not want more appointments. They do not want medication changes. They do not want to risk higher numbers. So they stay quiet. They accept swollen ankles. They accept fatigue. They accept dizziness. They accept brain fog. They accept weakness when standing. And they tell themselves this is simply the price of staying safe. But good blood pressure treatment is supposed to protect your future without unnecessarily shrinking your present. If the medication helps your numbers but makes you afraid to walk, travel, exercise, or stand for long periods, that is not a trivial complaint. That is medically important information. There is also a lesser-known issue with amlodipine that some people feel too embarrassed to mention: changes in the gums. For some people, especially with longer use, gum tenderness, swelling, or overgrowth can become part of the picture. It may sound small until it starts affecting comfort, chewing, dental cleanings, or confidence when smiling. People blame age. They blame brushing. They blame genetics. Sometimes the medication deserves a place on that list. So if you are over 60 taking amlodipine and your dentist keeps mentioning gum changes, do not ignore the possible connection. You do not need panic. You do need awareness. Now, we also need to draw a line between nuisance side effects and warning signs that should never be brushed aside. If you develop new or worsening chest pain, especially if you already have heart disease, that is not something to casually explain away. If you faint, if your heart is racing or pounding in a way that feels wrong, if you are severely weak, if you cannot catch your breath, if you suddenly feel profoundly unwell, those are not wait and see next month problems. Those need prompt medical attention. And here is another important point. Do not stop these medicines abruptly on your own because you got scared after reading a comment online or hearing one story from a friend. Stopping carelessly can create problems of its own. Blood pressure can rise again. Symptoms can worsen. The safest path is not panic, and it is not neglect. The safest path is review. There is another 5-year trap that catches a surprising number of people, missing doses because they feel fine. Blood pressure medicine is strange that way. When it works, it can create the illusion that you no longer need it. You feel okay, so you relax. You skip a day while traveling. You miss a refill. You forget it on a weekend. You decide one missed dose probably does not matter. Then one becomes several, and over time, control becomes uneven. That instability matters. Because long-term damage does not always come from one dramatic spike. It often comes from repeated inconsistency. So the 5-year story is not just about the pill itself. It is about the relationship between the pill and your daily habits. Are you taking it consistently? Are you checking your blood pressure correctly? Are you using a reliable monitor? Are you recording trends instead of obsessing over one random reading? Are you telling your doctor the truth about what you are actually feeling? I have seen patients blame the medication when the real problem was chaos around the medication. They were taking it at inconsistent times. They were getting dehydrated. They were using over-the-counter products that can interfere. They were taking potassium-containing salt substitutes without mentioning it. They were never writing down readings. And because the routine was disorganized, the medicine got blamed for a problem that was bigger than the prescription itself. Now let me tell you about Maria. Maria started Losartan and Amlodipine at 71. At that time, she was heavier, more sedentary, eating poorly, and her blood pressure needed strong help. Then, over the next few years, her life changed. She began walking every morning. She lost weight. She slept better. She became more careful with food. Those are excellent changes. But her medication plan stayed frozen. No one really revisited it. At first, she felt proud that her blood pressure looked so controlled. Then she started noticing something odd. When she bent down in the garden and stood back up, she felt faint. When the weather got hot, she felt washed out. One morning, she nearly lost her balance in the driveway. The medicine had not suddenly become bad. Her body had become healthier. And the plan had not kept up. That happens more often than people think. Improvement can change medication needs. That is why review matters even when the news is good. Now let me show you what the best 5-year outcome actually looks like. It does not look like perfection. It looks like steadiness. Your blood pressure is controlled without making you miserable. You are not getting scary dizzy spells. Your ankles are manageable or not swelling at all. Your kidney tests remain stable. Your potassium is not drifting into trouble. You are not getting palpitations that frighten you. You feel normal enough to live your life. In that situation, 5 years on Losartan and Amlodipine may be one of the most protective chapters of your later life. Not because the pills make you invincible, but because they reduce the strain that untreated high blood pressure would otherwise place on your heart, brain, kidneys, and blood vessels day after day after day. That protection is easy to overlook because it is quiet. But quiet does not mean unimportant. Now let's talk about home blood pressure monitoring, because many people get this wrong in one of two directions. Some become obsessive. They check 6 times a day, panic at every fluctuation, and let single readings control their mood. Others become careless. They check once in a while, assume all is well, and never notice a drift until symptoms appear. Neither pattern is helpful. What you want is meaningful information. Consistent readings, taken properly, at similar times, recorded over time. Because one high reading after a bad night does not prove the medicine failed. And one beautiful reading on a day you feel weak does not prove everything is fine either. Patterns matter more than snapshots. And if after years on this combination, you find yourself saying, "My blood pressure looks good, but I don't feel good," that sentence deserves attention. Maybe the dose is too strong. Maybe the timing needs adjustment. Maybe one of the medicines needs to change. Maybe the symptoms are coming from something else entirely. But that conversation only happens if you speak up. Too many adults over 60 stay silent until the price becomes a fall, a frightening episode, an emergency visit, or a sudden medication crisis. And if your story is going in the opposite direction, that matters too. Maybe the blood pressure is rising again after years of control. Maybe headaches are creeping back. Maybe swelling is new. Maybe your numbers are drifting upward despite faithful use. That does not automatically mean the combination is wrong. It may mean your body has changed. It may mean arteries have stiffened further with age. It may mean salt has crept back into the diet. It may mean sleep problems are interfering. It may mean another medication is getting in the way. It may mean your monitor technique is poor. The point is simple. 5 years does not freeze the cardiovascular system in place. Your body keeps changing. Your treatment has to be interpreted in the context of the body you have now, not the body you had when the prescription was first written. So if you are over 60 and taking Losartan with Amlodipine, here is the question that matters more than fear. What is your body trying to tell you? Is it telling you the combination is serving you well? Is it telling you your blood pressure is steadier and your life feels stable? Or is it telling you your ankles are getting heavier, your balance is getting shakier, your energy is lower, or your labs have not been checked in far too long? Those signals matter because the pills alone do not tell the whole story. The body living with the pills tells the story. And after 5 years, you have enough history to read that story more honestly than ever before. Here is what I want you to remember. The wrong reaction to this video is panic. The wrong reaction is running to the medicine cabinet and stopping everything. But the other wrong reaction is shrugging and saying, well, I've been on it this long, so I guess it must be fine. That is not safety. That is passivity. The right response is awareness. Review your blood pressure readings. Review your symptoms. Review your lab work. Review your other medications, including over-the-counter drugs, supplements, and salt substitutes. Review whether your current dose still matches your current body, your current kidney function, your current lifestyle, and your current age. Medicine is safest when it remains an active conversation. It becomes riskier when it turns into an old routine that nobody questions. And if you are wondering what your body should feel like when this combination is working properly after years, the answer is almost disappointingly simple. You should usually feel fairly normal, not dramatic, not shaky, not swollen to the point that it changes your day, not frightened to stand up, not constantly guessing. The goal is quiet protection. The danger is that quiet protection can make people careless. They stop appointments, they stop tracking, they ignore swelling, they hide dizziness. They assume their labs are fine, and then a problem that could have been caught early becomes much harder to clean up later. So what happens to your body over the next 5 years if you are over 60 and taking Losartan with Amlodipine? Usually, one of two broad stories unfolds. In the first story, the treatment remains a good fit. Blood pressure stays more controlled. The heart, brain, kidneys, and blood vessels likely face less stress than they would have without treatment. Life moves forward more safely, even if you barely notice the protection day to day. In the second story, the medication still lowers pressure, but side effects, swelling, dizziness, lab changes, or shifting body needs begin to show up. And if those signals are ignored, what once helped you can begin to interfere with safety, comfort, or independence. 5 years does not automatically mean damage. 5 years reveals whether the treatment has been actively managed or merely repeated, and that may be the most important line in this entire video. Never confuse long-term use with permanent certainty. A prescription that was right at 62 may be wrong at 67. A side effect that was mild in the beginning may become disruptive later. A body that once needed stronger support may someday need a gentler plan. And in many cases, the same two medicines a person once feared may turn out to be part of what helped preserve the years they most wanted to keep. So here is the practical action plan. Keep taking your medicine exactly as prescribed unless your doctor tells you otherwise. Do not stop it suddenly on your own. Monitor your blood pressure consistently and correctly. Mention swelling, dizziness, weakness, gum changes, palpitations, or unusual fatigue instead of hiding them. Ask when your kidney function and potassium were last checked. Be careful during dehydration, vomiting, diarrhea, hot weather, or poor fluid intake. And if your blood pressure numbers look good but you feel worse, say that clearly. That single sentence can change the direction of your care. Because good treatment is not just about lower numbers. It is about a safer body and a fuller life. And before we finish, I want you to think about one deeper truth. Losartan and Amlodipine do not just act on blood vessels, they act on your future. They shape the odds of what your next 5 years may feel like. More stable or more fragile, more protected or more pressured, more independent or more limited. That future is too important to manage casually. If this helped you understand what Losartan with Amlodipine may really be doing in your body after 60, share this with someone who takes blood pressure medication and assumes everything is either completely fine or completely hopeless. It is usually neither. It is usually a story that can still be improved with the right follow-up, the right questions, and the right timing. Take care of yourself.